Semi-recently we did a video taking a look at Mahatma Gandhi, and today we have a similarly iconic historical figure in the form of Nelson Mandela. I'm not going to waste any time with an intro, but as always, leave your comments down below with suggestions for people, topics, videos you would like to see here on the channel. They can be significant historical figures, or they can be, I don't know, actors. It could be Andy Murray, it could be Boris Johnson, it could be Jabba the Hutt. All recommendations and suggestions are welcome as always, but let's get on with today's video. Rolihlahla Mandela was born into the Madiba clan in the village of Mvezo in the Eastern Cape on 18th of July 1918. His mother was Nonkapi Noskeni and his father was Nkosi Kadla Mandela, principal councillor to the acting king of the Thembu people. In 1930, when he was just 12 years old, his father died and the young Rolihlahla became a ward of Chongqing Taba at the Great Place in Umkkezweni. Some of these words are really pushing my pronunciation early on. Hearing the elder stories of his ancestors' valour during the wars of resistance, he dreamed also of making his own contribution to the freedom struggle of his people. He attended primary school in Kunu, where his teacher, Miss Mdingane, gave him the name Nelson in accordance with the custom of giving all school children Christian names. He completed his junior certificate at Clarkbury Boarding Institute and went on to Held Town, a Wesleyan secondary school of some repute, where he matriculated. Mandela began his studies for a Bachelor of Arts degree at the University College of Fort Hare, but did not complete the degree there as he was expelled for joining in a student protest. On his return to the Great Place at Umkkezweni, the king was furious and said if he didn't return to Fort Hare, he would arrange wives for him and his cousin Justice. They ran away to Johannesburg instead, arriving there in 1941. There he worked as a mine security officer, and after meeting Walter Sisulu, an estate agent, he was introduced to Laser Sidelski. He then did his articles through a firm of attorneys, Witkin, Idleman and Sidelski. He completed his BA through the University of South Africa and went back to Fort Hare for his graduation in 1943. Meanwhile, he began studying for an LLB at the University of Witwatersrand. By his own admission, he was a poor student and left the university in 1952 without graduating. He only started studying again through the University of London after his imprisonment in 1962, but also did not complete that degree. In 1989, while in the last months of his imprisonment, he obtained an LLB through the University of South Africa. He graduated in absentia at a ceremony in Cape Town. So, the next section is titled Entering Politics, but before we get into that, I think it would be useful to sort of give a little bit of context of South Africa at the time, particularly with apartheid. So, apartheid, which is apartness in the language of Afrikaans, was a system of legislation that upheld segregationist policies against non-white citizens in South Africa. After the National Party gained power in South Africa in 1948, its all-white government began immediately enforcing existing policies of racial segregation. Under apartheid, non-white South Africans, which was a majority of the population, would be forced to live in separate areas from whites and use separate public facilities. Contact Nelson Mandela would later win the Nobel Peace Prize for their work creating a new constitution for South Africa. Spoilers. So that just gives you a little bit of a sense of what apartheid was. It should note that the article sort of touched upon it there. It was sort of an extension of racist laws that already existed within South Africa, so racism and segregation were already rife within South Africa, I believe. There was something to do with like the distribution of land, and this began sort of in the early 1900s, like between 1910 and 1920, if I recall correctly. But yeah, if you didn't know what apartheid was, now you do. So we now move back to Nelson Mandela entering politics. So Mandela, while increasingly politically involved from 1942, only joined the African National Congress in 1944, when he helped form the ANC Youth League. In 1944, he married Walter Sisulu's cousin, Evelyn Mace, who was a nurse. They had two sons, Madiba Thembekile Thembi and Makatho, and two daughters both called Makaziwe. The first of whom died in infancy. He and his wife divorced in 1958. Mandela rose through the ranks of the ANC-YL, and through its efforts, the ANC adopted a more radical mass-based policy called the Programme of Action in 1949. In 1952, he was chosen as the National Volunteer-in-Chief of the Defiance Campaign, with Malvi Kachalia as his deputy. This campaign of civil disobedience against 6 unjust laws was a joint programme between the ANC and the South African Indian Congress. He and 19 others were charged under the Suppression of Communism Act for their part in the campaign and sentenced to 9 months of hard labour, suspended for 2 years. A 2-year diploma in law on top of his BA allowed Mandela to practice law, and in August 1952, he and Oliver Tambo established South Africa's first black-owned law firm in the 1950s, Mandela and Tambo. At the end of 1952, he was banned for the first time. As a restricted person, he was only permitted to watch in secret, as the Freedom Charter was adopted in Kliptown on 26th of June, 1955. So we now move on to the treason trial. Mandela was arrested in a countrywide police swoop on the 5th of December 1956, which led to the 1956 treason trial. Men and women of all races found themselves in the dock in the marathon trial that only ended when the last 28 accused, including Mandela, were acquitted on the 29th of March 1961. On 24th of March 1960, police killed 69 unarmed people in a protest in Sharpeville against the pass laws. This led to the country's first state of emergency and the banning of the ANC and the Pan-Africanist Congress on the 8th of April. Mandela and his colleagues in the treason trial were among thousands detained during this state of emergency. During the trial, Mandela married a social worker, Winnie Madikizela, on 14th of June 1958. They had 2 daughters, Zenani and Zenziswa. The couple divorced in 1996. Days before the end of the treason trial, Mandela travelled to Pietermaritzburg to speak to the All in Africa conference, which resolved that he should write to Prime Minister Verwoerd requesting a national convention on a non-racial constitution, and to warn that he should not agree there would be a national strike against South Africa becoming a republic. After he and his colleagues were acquitted in the treason trial, massive mobilisation of state security, the strike was called off early. In June 1961, he was asked to lead the armed struggle and helped to establish Mkondo Wisizwe, which means Spear of the Nation, which launched on 16th of December 1961 with a series of explosions. On 11th of January 1962, using the adopted name David Motsamai, Mandela secretly left South Africa. He travelled around Africa and visited England to gain support for the armed struggle. He received military training in Morocco and Ethiopia and returned to South Africa in July 1962. He was arrested in a police roadblock outside Howick on 5th of August while returning from KwaZulu-Natal, where he had briefed ANC President Chief Albert Luthuli about his trip. He was charged with leaving the country without a permit and inciting workers to strike. He was convicted and sentenced to 5 years imprisonment, which he began serving at the Pretoria local prison. On the 27th of May 1963, he was transferred to Robben Island and returned to Pretoria on the 12th of June. Within a month, police raided Liliesleaf, a secret hideout in Rivonia, Johannesburg, used by ANC and Communist Party activists, and several of Mandela's comrades were arrested. On 9th of October 1963, Mandela joined 10 others on trial for sabotage in what became known as the Rivonia trial. While facing the death penalty, his words to the court at the end of his famous speech from the dock on 20th of April 1964 became immortalised. They are, "I have fought against white domination and I have fought against black domination. I have cherished the ideal of a democratic and free society in which all persons live together in harmony and with equal opportunities. It is an ideal which I hope to live for and to achieve, but if needs be, it is an ideal for which I am prepared to die." Powerful, powerful words. On the 11th of June 1964, Mandela and 7 other accused, Walter Sisulu, Ahmed Kathrada, Govan Mbeki, Raymond Malaba, and Andrew Mlangeni, were convicted and the next day sentenced to life in prison. Goldberg was sent to Pretoria prison because he was white, while the others went to Robben Island. Mandela's mother died in 1968 and his eldest son Thembi in 1969. He was not allowed to attend their funerals. On 31st of March 1982, Mandela was transferred to Bolmsmore prison in Cape Town with Sisulu, Malaba and Mlangeni. Kathrada joined them in October. When he returned to the prison in November 1985, after prostate surgery, Mandela was held alone. Justice Minister Gobi Coetzee visited him in hospital. Later, Mandela initiated talks about an ultimate meeting between the apartheid government and the ANC. And that brings us on to his release from prison. So, on the 12th of August 1988, he was taken to hospital where he was diagnosed with tuberculosis. After more than 3 months in 2 hospitals, he was transferred on 7th of December 1988 to a house at Victor Verster prison near Paarl, where he spent his last 14 months of imprisonment. He was released from its gates on Sunday the 11th of February 1990, 9 days after the unbanning of the ANC and the PAC, and nearly 4 months after the release of his remaining Rivonia comrades. Mandela Rhodes Foundation. It is in your hands. Mandela Day quote. In April 2007, his grandson Mandela was installed as head of the Mvezo Traditional Council at a ceremony at the Mvezo Great Place. Nelson Mandela never wavered in his devotion to democracy, equality and learning. Despite terrible provocation, he never answered racism with racism. His life is an inspiration to all who are oppressed and deprived, and to all who are opposed to oppression and deprivation. He died at his home in Johannesburg on the 5th of December 2013. So that is a very brief look at the life of Nelson Mandela. Now just to sort of finish, I've got another sort of very short article which is titled South Africa Before and After Mandela, and this really looks at the kind of impact, specifically economic impact, that Mandela had on the country of South Africa. So, before Mandela, South Africa was a country shackled by apartheid. His release from prison in 1990 and his moves to reconcile the country marked the transformation of South Africa as a society and an economy. So the person who wrote this article says, one of my sharpest memories from my formative years was of the global push to divest from South Africa. There was a strong movement to push multinational companies into pulling investment from the country as a way of ending apartheid. When that finally happened, Mandela became the face of the new South Africa. In fact, he was the symbol of Africa rising in a number of respects. This is the phrase frequently heard as Africa has become the fastest growing region in the world after Asia. This is a far cry from the years when the region's dominant issues were poverty and debt forgiveness. On the back of the extraordinary commodity boom of the past decade, African nations have grown well, many quite rapidly, averaging 5% a year in the last decade. I'm just going to check when this was written. This was written in 2013. This has been the longest expansion of incomes in 30 years. The International Monetary Fund forecasts that 7 out of the top 10 fastest growing economies in the world are currently and will be in Africa for the next few years. And those were Ethiopia, Mozambique, Tanzania, Congo, Ghana, Zambia and Nigeria. Whether these countries can sustain that economic growth depends on a number of factors, including whether they have managed to industrialise and mechanise agriculture using the proceeds from the double-digit rise in commodity prices. And importantly, we may soon find out whether they have done enough to adjust to the looming end of that extraordinary commodity boom. For the largest country in the region, the transformation is notable. At one stage, South Africa accounted for 1/3 of the entire output of the near 50 countries in sub-Saharan Africa. South Africa's average income during the 1980s was about $5,000, so that's £3,000-ish per capita, which made it a lower to middle income country. It had doubled to $10,000 by 2010 and is now closer to upper middle income as it approaches $13,000 to $14,000, which the IMF estimates that it can achieve by the middle of the decade. I wonder if it hit it. Probably should have found more up-to-date articles, shouldn't I? And it became part of the BRICS, BRICS, adding the S to Brazil, Russia, India and China, those other large emerging economies. For investors seeking high returns, South Africa has become a popular destination, causing problems along the way but signalling its arrival as one of the new players in the global economy. This is not to suggest that South Africa doesn't have challenges. To name a few, first world financial market within a third world economic system. It's a really interesting way of putting it. Not all of these changes are due, or even necessarily related to Mandela's release from prison and his becoming the first black president of South Africa, but his actions led Africa's biggest economy into a transformative era. For those of us who were inspired by him, that link in our minds is inextricable. So that just gives you yet another dimension to the incredible impact that Nelson Mandela had on the country of South Africa, but not just on South Africa, really, the world. He's truly up there with one of the most iconic and influential figures in all of history. Truly an amazing man. But that is going to do it for tonight's video. I really hope you did enjoy it. I hope you learned something new, or you found it really relaxing. Like I said earlier, any requests, get them down below, and a lot of the time I end up doing them. I've got a nice big spreadsheet with lots of video ideas, so feel free to spam anything down below and I will probably add it to the sheet. But that is gonna do it for tonight. Thank you so